Hello, everybody. It's Friday night. Welcome back to Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and my three, I was going to say guests, but kind of mainstays really these days, aren't you, gentlemen? So we've got Jim from Mystery and Mayhem, Greg from Another
Hello.
Bibliophile Reads, and the one and only Randy L. Ray from The Literate Texan. If you couldn't tell by the attire. So, gents, how's it all going? How's this week been in terms of reading? Have you finished anything, Jim?
Yes, actually, I have finished this novel by A.J. Holt, Watch Me. It's a series of 2 books, and I'm going to read this one pretty soon, Catch Me. And it's kind of like a Silence of the Lambs kind of thing, but it's got an interesting twist to it. But under this name, he's only written like 2 of these books with this character, and I really like the character in this. I'm kind of surprised he didn't keep on with this series. But he also writes books under his real name, which is, I think, Christopher Hyde. And he's got a lot more books under that name. This is just a pseudonym. But I really enjoyed that book. My wife had been bugging me to read these forever. And I finally said, yeah, okay, I'll read the first one so I can maybe do a video on it or something like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And of course, I've got all my Raymond Chandler books beside me that I've been kind of perusing through. And
if I was Alan, I'd be getting up to get my copy of the same one as well, wouldn't I? But
yeah,
I'm just too lazy.
I figured instead of me getting up, I brought all my books beside me, and this will be my next read, The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict, about Agatha Christie's disappearance in 1927, whenever it was. So I'm really looking forward to that, and that's just I love the cover on that; it's beautiful. So yeah, that's kind of my week. And of course, I've been reading a lot of Sherlock Holmes too. I've got all these MX books that I've been reading a bunch of short. I love those. They're so well done. They did such a good job on those books. But yeah, that's it for me for my week for reading.
Pretty good. Not bad at all. Greg, you finished like 50 books this week, or?
A little short of 50 books. I finished 2. I finished Finders Keepers by Stephen King on my Kindle, so I don't have things to hold up. Because I'm doing an event where I'm reading all the books with a certain Holly Gabney. So I'm going to be doing that at the end of the month. And I read a very odd horror novel called Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfeld. It's gotten a huge amount of praise by a lot of booktubers because it's a haunted house story. And it's transgender story. And honestly, I don't think the two mixed that well. You know, it's the author was trying to write 2 books at once. And it just did not gel completely for me, the 2 stories. Because when you deal with issues of transgender, the way I prefer it is just tell their story. Don't try to get on a soapbox and say how important it is to treat them as human beings. Just tell the story you need to tell. And of course, this author was on the soapbox a lot.
And I wanted to say, Jim, just before we move on to Randy, is I really, really enjoyed your video on Chandler.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks.
It was really, really well done. Did it take you a long time to do? Or
oh my God, I had so much trouble with that video. It took me 2, maybe almost 3 days to do, and I finally just said, "To heck with it! I'm just putting it out." You could see in the second part where I've got a whole bunch of cuts, and I'm looking down. Like when I scripted a lot of it, and yeah, so I mean, it worked out well though, and thanks, I appreciate that. I've gotten a lot of good comments on it, so I'm happy with it, but it took me a while.
And then, of course, anyone watching who hasn't seen it, do head to Jim's channel and check it out. It's not very long, is it? It's 7 minutes or something, 6, 7 minutes.
Yeah, just under 7 minutes, I think. Yeah. It's a real quick one.
Now, Randy, I don't really need to ask you unless you've read anything since we last spoke. But I remember the Malignant 7. No,
the Malevolent
7. That's it. Yeah. That's.
I've read 5 books in the last week.
Sorry?
I've read 5 books in the last week. That's a lot.
I was only kidding, of course. I wanted,
but I haven't felt well.
What have you read?
Well, so a week ago I read Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo, which was terrific. And Greg read that along with me as a buddy read. And there was, how many other people did we have in this buddy read? Was it
just Rad is Rad?
Just the three of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the three of us. This was fantastic, by the way. If you haven't read this, man, it was really good. But, you don't really leave it with like a big smile, and you don't go skipping around the house or anything like that. I mean, it's a bummer.
It is. Did you know going in the extent of his injuries?
I did, yes. Yeah, so that part was spoiled for me, but yeah, just high level what it's about. Soldier in World War I winds up with horrific injuries, and the story takes place over his, I guess you'd call it, recuperation in the hospital dealing with his injuries. But a lot of it is stream of consciousness and flipping back and forth between his recollections of what went on in his life before the injuries and what went on after. So yeah, it was great. Dalton Trumbo, of course, is a famous screenwriter who refused to participate in the Hollywood blacklist stuff. Everybody, during the McCarthy era, they would bring the Hollywood guys in to rat out the other guys, and he just absolutely refused to participate and got blacklisted and had to work under pseudonyms. But really well known, won a lot of awards. Apparently, he was a terrific screenwriter. He
did. What's the one that I'm thinking of? I read the Spartacus.
Yeah, that's right. He wrote Spartacus, and there's other famous ones that he wrote too. That might be the most famous, but I think there were some that were equally as famous.
And the thing is that novel is just beautifully written. I mean, he has an odd style. He doesn't use commas.
Right.
He just cuts out the use of the comma, but it worked.
Do you think that was unique to this book, though? I mean, obviously he knows how to use a comma. I think the lack of commas probably had something to do with the way the narrative was being told in the main character's head.
Yes, he wanted it to specify that he wanted you to pay attention to the text, I think. Mm-hmm. And saying, you just don't speed through it. Because there are some scenes in that book that are absolutely stunning.
Oh, yeah. And some of the wording was stunning.
And the one I won't spoil it, but do you remember when he's at the train station saying goodbye to his girlfriend?
Yes.
And he's talking about hugging her goodbye. Oh, it's a nice scene. And then he reveals something, and you go like, oh. That was like...
I'm guessing he used commas in Spartacus, though, because I remember it being quite a long film, and they didn't just go... But I actually have a personal connection to Spartacus because I met Peter Ustinov, so...
Really?
Yeah, really lucky because he was the chancellor of my university. So he gave my graduation speech, and then he shook my hand, handing me my degree and everything. It was really cool. So
very cool.
It is, yeah. It was his last. I think that was his last year before he died, or maybe one more year. But yeah, it was really cool because he was such a raconteur and such an interesting person, and like I felt, even just shaking his hand, and he was so friendly. I just felt, God, how many amazing hands has that hand shaken? So I was like, whoa, yeah. So there we go. Anyway, Randy, sorry.
Raconteur is such a great word. I went with a minimalist online dating profile, and it just says raconteur, gourmand, bon vivant in my description. And then I realized those are all French words. So, someone might think that I'm French or think that they need to speak French in order to date me. So then I got Duolingo and started learning French. But I also read Death and the Conjurer, Spectre Locked Room Mystery. This is the first in the series. And this was terrific. This was really great if you like old-fashioned mysteries. But the premise is it's set in 1936. A psychiatrist has been murdered. The inspector from Scotland Yard recruits a amateur sleuth who just happens to be a retired stage magician to help him solve the mystery. and it begins as a locked room mystery, but as the story progresses, you have 2 or 3 other locked room mysteries that happen during the story. And it was a lot of fun, but I guess it was customary in these traditional mysteries from the 30s to have a section where it says, now you've got all the facts, can you solve who the murderer was? And he even has a chapter where he speaks directly to the reader and says, well, you've got all the facts. And it's kind of, blasé to have a chapter like this, but I thought it would be fun since this is so traditional. So have you figured out who the murderer is yet?
That was
just a lot of fun.
Gimmick when he first started writing. That was his gimmick. He did that in like a lot of his books. And
who was that?
Was Ellery Queen.
Okay.
Yeah, he did that a lot. That was his gimmick. Like you have all the facts now. Figure out who the murderer is, and he stopped.
Did he ever
doing
tell
that
you, or
later
did
on.
he just leave it open for you to determine your own?
Yeah.
Have you read this one, Jim?
I haven't read that one. It looks very intriguing, actually. I would read that.
The second book in the series is out now too. It's called The Murder Wheel, and it has to do with a murder committed on a Ferris wheel, I think.
Oh wow! Yeah, I'd read that.
So anyway, great fun. I loved that. And then Mark mentioned The Malevolent Seven. The Malevolent Seven is a book. You may be familiar about it. It's a fantasy novel about wizards, but it's 7 amoral mercenary wizards who go on a mission. So obviously there's a callback to the Magnificent Seven in the title. But it was just really well written and a lot of fun. I read a romance novel called Role Playing, which doesn't involve the kind of role playing that you might think, where you pretend that she's a Russian spy and I pretend I'm with the CIA, but she refused to participate because she can't do a Russian accent. But I think maybe there was something else behind it. But anyway,
it sounds oddly personal. Like,
I digress. Well, anyway, so the novel is about a couple who are both around 50 years old, but they're playing a multi-player role-playing game. And for some reason, he thinks she's nearly 80 years old, and she thinks he's nearly 20 years old. And they get to be friends in this game, and when they meet and realize they're the same age, the sparks fly. But it was really, really good. I was really surprised at how much I liked it. And then I also read The Glass Box by J. Michael Straczynski, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
It's set in a horrifying dystopia that's probably about 10 years away. And it was so realistic that it was a little more disturbing than some of your dystopian books. Because some of your dystopian books, it's just like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about, I don't really worry about living in a Mad Max type of future. But I do worry about a future where I might get locked up in a mental hospital for 6 months and not be able to get out no matter what I do.
Well, if you do go around telling everyone you work for the CIA, there's a good possibility.
Well, that was a role-playing scenario that she refused to participate in because she said she couldn't do a Russian accent, but there might have been something else behind that too. I don't know.
Well, how do you know she was not a Russian sleeper agent? And she said, I can't play the role because that wouldn't be a role.
That would, and she dyed her hair blonde again. She was a redhead at the time, so she would have been perfect for the Russian thing. But
wouldn't that be a good mystery book where you're having a set and you're having a relationship with her and she refused to do the agent because it would be true?
I like it.
Ooh, yeah.
I like it.
Would she have looked good in a Princess Leia costume? That's what I want to know, Randy.
Oh. She would look good in any costume.
Oh.
Yeah, I had her convinced. Well, never mind.
Save that maybe for the after chat, probably.
Yes. Let's just say I'm a big fan of Batgirl from the 60s Batman TV show.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say Yvonne DiCarlo, but no, that wasn't her name. Forgotten her name.
Yvonne DiCarlo?
No.
Or there was 2 of them, right? Or there's no 2 cat
Well, there were 3 cat women.
You're thinking
Catwoman.
Catwoman.
I'm talking about Batgirl.
Yeah, Batgirl, there was only one in the TV show. There was like 3 Catwomans. There was Lee Merriweather, Julie Newmar.
Yvonne Joyce Craig?
Yes.
Yvonne
Craig? Yeah.
Yep.
Yvonne Craig, that's right.
Yep.
No longer with us, sadly. So.
No. And she was the green girl in Star Trek. And
That's right.
And yeah. That's a shame, eh?
What a beauty.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She would have been pretty old, though. I mean, she was born 1937, yeah, so.
Well,
yeah.
same age as my dad. I try not to hold their age against them.
Well, I guess, I haven't read anything. I haven't finished anything. The only thing, I can't remember if I'd finished it last time or not. The only book I finished this year is The Fraud by Zadie Smith, and I wasn't too impressed, really. It's quite complicated, so I won't actually talk about it too much. But I'm currently reading, I might as well start off with that. I am currently reading 3 books. One of them is the sequel to that Wolf and the Watchman book that I mentioned that I found kind of disturbing. The second book, the sequel, is disturbing too, but in a different way. But it's also very good. So I'm actually quite enjoying it, if it's the right word.
I liked Wolf and the Watchmen a lot.
I liked it too. That's the thing. I had no issue with I didn't have any real issue with it, other than I found just the murder to be
the murder
really horrific and
goes back
disturbing.
towards Johnny got his gun.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
There's some horrific stuff in that book. You want to talk about horrific and disturbing? It was, yeah. Boy.
I think it's just in my case, because these things can be maybe you can always judge something as being horrific, but then there are things that are going to disturb some people more than others based off your own fears or whatever. And I think in this particular book, it had some resonance with me as something that would be particularly horrific. I think, I don't know. I mean, it is horrific anyway. But anyway, the sequel is different, but good, very good.
I think under the mystery banner, I can probably stomach things better than if it was in a horror novel. Extreme
it's not
stuff.
horror. It's like horrible.
Yeah,
but it's not horror. There's no supernatural stuff in it or anything. It's just a particularly barbaric, horrific way to murder somebody. I think, which is what I didn't like. The next one is just nonfiction, which I'm doing with the Patreon book club, and it's for Historathon as well, which is the lives. I don't know if you can see it there. The lives of ancient Egyptians, and it's 100 lives by this Egyptologist, Toby Wilkinson, and it's they're not very long entries, of course, because there's not like a huge amount of information, but it is amazing, really, what they can glean from like the hieroglyphics and things on people's tombs, and it's not all like high born people of high birth. It's there's dentists in here and doctors and other types of people. It's very, very, very good. And of course, the last one, which is never going to end, I'll probably still be reading it forever, is of course War and Peace by Tolstoy, which is also excellent. So all 3 books that I'm currently on the go are excellent, and I plan to finish at least this one before Monday. So that's my current reading.
Does that cover have any relevance to the story at all, Mark? Like, I noticed in a lot of these classics, they use like classic paintings, and I wonder if they really have any kind of relevance to the story.
No, they're probably trying to say who is the young girl in that one who is so excited to marry Pierre in the beginning?
I haven't got any.
She's really young.
Well, hang on, no. She's not that. What's her name? Is it Helene?
No, it's
Helene. Helene is Pierre's wife now. Maybe something happens later because I know he's not happy with her.
There's some young
Natasha
girl. Natasha?
She's a young girl who's in it, but she certainly hasn't married him yet. So I didn't know if that was going to happen.
I don't know. Maybe she married someone else. I can't remember. I read it a couple of days ago. There's so many characters doing things. You can't keep track of everything.
I just keep laughing when I see Boris and Natasha, though, because it seems like very, stereotypical. So
from Rocky and Bullwinkle?
I guess I know, but they're also in War and Peace too, right?
Oh, okay. I get the reference. Okay.
So we'll cut back to Randy, then up to Jim, and down to Greg. So, Randy, what have you currently got on the go?
I'm about 30 pages into Pride and Prejudice, which I've never read before, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm about 90 pages into The Hours, which won the Pulitzer, I think, in 1998 or 1999. And it's, I have a feeling that if I'd read Virginia Woolf, I might be getting a little more out of this. but I'm liking it in
But then you
spite of
have
that.
to read Virginia Woolf, so
Yeah. Well, I haven't read Virginia Woolf, but I have at least one ex-girlfriend who's encouraging me to. So I've avoided it because I avoid all the books that she recommends. She really wants me to read Blindness by, well, I can't remember the author's name.
Jose Saramago?
Yeah. But I read about 50 pages of it. It's a difficult book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's such a nag about it that it's tempting to just not read it just to spite her. I hope she's not watching. I can promise you she's not watching. None of my girlfriends watch me on YouTube, which is why I feel free to talk about them.
Randy, my wife doesn't watch me on YouTube, so you have nothing to worry about.
Oh.
I was having lunch with one of my lady friends one day, and I think I just hit 700 subscribers or something like that. And I told her, I said, well, you can tell people now that you had lunch with a sexy social media influencer today. She wasted no time in saying, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Last I saw, Randy, after your video with Steve, you were very close. Are you almost there now? Or?
I'm at 939 subscribers.
Cool.
That was what the number was before I logged onto the call. So 61 more subscribers.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've only got 16 people in the chat at the moment, so they're probably already subscribed to you. But if they're not, head over and
They each get 4 friends.
Yeah,
And there's 16 of the best people.
They are wonderful.
They're the ones we want.
We got Jim and Scott.
Yes, I'm just heading to those now, actually, before we go to Jim.
Yeah,
so,
let's say hello to some of them.
We got Zap. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Zap.
Jim saying hi, guys.
Jim.
On Point is checking in from a snowy NYC. Jim's letting us know what he's currently reading. Actress by Anne Enright. I Am Death, I Am Salvation by Frank E. Holmes. And Tales from Kartli by Rebaz Georgi Arveladze. So, And then Scott's also here from the Bookish Bryants without Becky, because Becky's always working. Ariane's here. Welcome to you. And James is here as well. My wife watched my first video to make sure I didn't say anything offensive. I think it was boring enough for her that she won't watch again. Oh dear.
My
Jim.
wife will sit and watch. My wife will sit and watch videos with me. Like we enjoy watching. I'll sit and watch your videos, and she's good with sitting and watching you guys.
Oh, well, that's good. It would be awkward if she wasn't, I suppose.
But whether she'll watch me, I don't know. Remains to be seen. But yes, this one. So I showed you that one already. That's might be my next one, or The Outsider by King.
Oh yeah, great.
I love that one.
Such a small book. So I'll probably read this one first, and then I'll get into the Agatha Christie book. And I've only read a few Agatha Christie's, but I mean, I read the first one of hers. I read was years ago. I read Murder. Well, it was actually called Murder on the Calais Coach before she retitled it to Murder on the Orient Express, which is a better title. But that was I've read that one, and then there were none. Death on the Nile, a couple of them. So yeah, I do enjoy Agatha Christie, and I'm looking forward to reading that one. She had a fascinating life, and she was quite the woman.
She was.
Yeah.
Greg.
I am reading 2 books. The first one is The Fall of Chronopolis by Barrington Bailey. It's a 70s science fiction novel. It was reprinted by SF Masterworks. It's one of the great works, to be published that have gone out of print. It's kind of an interesting concept. It's set somewhere in the future where an empire has developed time travel, and they set up nodes of times, and they're trying to take over other parts of the galaxy, and the enemy is called the Hegemony, does not want to be taken over, and they've created this weapon that will basically time obliterate like a city. So the city is just taken out of time. So you go to the emperor and go, you know that city of the like, no, I don't know about, because all of a sudden it's taken out of the past. So the people currently don't remember it.
What about the people who live there?
They're gone.
Oh, so it's completely gone. Like
It's
just
completely gone, except for certain people working these archives have records and they can sort of remember this city. And it's very pulpy, you know. It's just it's a lot of fun. I remember seeing it on some booktuber's favorite science fiction novels channel. I don't remember who said it, but it's available on Kindle for $2.99. So, you know, for $2.99, and it's 175 pages. So I said, oh, it's a perfect book to read for my 100 book challenge. And we'll see. Now, the other book I'm reading is really different. It's the Bhagavad Gita. And as I said, I'm doing this as I'm going through all the old religious texts of the 5 major religions and doing sort of a distant survey of them all. And this one is actually kind of interesting. Their cosmological and worldview of how they viewed everything. It's sort of not what you would expect from the monotheistic religion. So I'm enjoying this quite a lot. I'm also listening to the audio version as I'm reading this, just to help understand a bit, because some of the names in here are not friendly to the English language people, you know.
Cool. Wow, some interesting stuff there then. Maria Johansson is here saying hello from the north of Sweden. Wow.
Maria.
Wow, hello.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty dark and cold up there. Tim's here from Tim's Reading Room. Hello, all.
Tim.
And Jim's saying on Sci-Fi, I've started Starship Troopers, which was $1.99 on Kindle. It is very militaristic. I've only seen the film from the 90s, so I haven't read it. But you mentioned Randy, your ex-girlfriend, and you weren't too keen on books and things she recommended. I wonder, and we'll come back to you on that, Randy, but I wonder if Jim and Greg, whether your wives recommend books to you or not, or
yes, this Watch Me was recommended by her. She had read these. She's a big reader, and she's the one who got me into the Pendergast novels. The series of it's a Pendergast series, it's called, and he's got like 20 in the series, and she started reading that, and I recommend books to her that she reads. She read the whole Dennis Lehane books that I have, the Kinsey and Gennaro Private Eye Mysteries, and I love those, and I recommended them to her, and she read that series and loved that series. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice. There's that back and forth with us.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Greg?
We don't really recommend books back and forth too much. Hold on for a second. She's not a huge reader like I am. She'll read maybe 1 or 2 books a month, you know. And one of those is usually,
of course, though, for normal people, that is really respectable.
It is.
I mean, you know.
But we have an in-person book group, so we read the same book, so we can discuss that before the regular book group starts. And because when she looks at my books, they're either too gory from reading horror or something, or too complicated and literary, like Johnny Got His Gun. I told her a bit of it, just, oh no, that's just too depressing. I don't want to read about someone with war injuries, you know. So
Yeah. Well, my wife won't read everything I recommend. I tried to get her into Chandler a few different times, but she hasn't. She tried reading one and she didn't really finish it. So I think the problem with Chandler is, you know, even though he was a trendsetter, I think nowadays it reads like cliche and stereotype, even though it wasn't back in the day. You know,
someone did one on Dashiell Hammett's first novel.
The Red Harvest. Yeah.
Is that you? Or is that someone else?
That wasn't me. I haven't done Dashiell Hammett yet, but I love that book. The Continental Op.
Yes.
That was he was a character that featured in the short stories of
And a few
Dashiell Hammett
novels.
and Black Mask, and then Red Harvest was the first novel he wrote with that character.
Yeah, but
Awesome novel.
Whoever did the review mentioned is that you have bad guys in a car speeding away, and the police following, and guns are firing at both ends, and everyone says, "Oh, what a cliche!"
Yeah.
However, that was the first time you had a gangster cop shootout in a book.
That was written in the 1920s. That book. So
Yes.
he's the first one who did that kind of stuff.
He was the first one he's the first one who had that kind of scene. But now it's just.
And they based that influenced a lot of other movies. Was it Yojimbo, the Japanese movie, and Bruce Willis is the last man standing or something?
Last Boy Scout, something like that.
No, not the Last Boy Scout. No, it was a period piece. He was a gangster in the 1920s, and it was based on Red Harvest, very loosely based. So I mean, this story has influence in literature, film culture and literature culture. It's such a great novel,
What about Sherlock Holmes, Jim? Has she read Sherlock Holmes?
I don't think she has, to tell you the truth.
Oh, now's the time. Well, next month.
Yeah.
Very romantic.
I have to rethink this relationship.
You can read it to her on Valentine's Day.
I could do that. Yes, you're right. I could.
You might appreciate something more than reading Sherlock Holmes.
That's a Valentine's gift. You give her the complete works of Sherlock Holmes. There you go.
I could do that. Hey, I'm sure there's a naughty Sherlock Holmes pastiche out there somewhere. I could read that for Valentine's Day.
Pretty sure. And Randy, has there ever been an ex-partner whose book advice you took seriously?
Well, to think about it, most of them weren't readers.
Mm.
Oddly enough, although there is a woman I spend time with now who's controlling all my reading for the rest of the month, starting on Monday.
Uh-huh.
I already have a shelf with all the books that she's recommended, so I'm looking forward to that. I was married for 15 years, and my wife wasn't a reader. Now, her mother was, and she read a lot of mysteries. But yeah, no, she wasn't a reader, so she never recommended books. She was a gardener. And then before that, I don't know. You know what? There was a woman that I dated who looked just like Holly Hunter and worked as a waitress at Chili's. She wasn't just a waitress at Chili's. She won awards and stuff. But she was a big Stephen King fan. And I turned her on to a novel called Saint Maybe by Ann Tyler. And she loved it. So, yeah, she was a lot of fun until she wasn't.
And let's just check a couple of the comments before I do have another question lined up. There's one here for you, Greg. Have you been watching KD Books' recent videos on the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita?
I've seen his first one on the Bhagavad Gita. He was reading an edition meant for Krishnas. And I think he got so frustrated because it was really a religious text for the people who are participating in that religion. Where in addition, I'm reading. You have an introductory essay in each chapter, and then you just read the text. So I'm not reading this as a religious text, even though it can be. I'm reading for just historical perspective of what Hinduism is like. So, and I think what KD says, he needed to get another translation.
Right.
And I have one other public domain translation, which I just find illegible. It's just.
What's the audiobook you're listening to? It's not a LibriVox one.
No, this one? Oh, the same.
No, the audiobook. You said you're listening to it on audiobook as well.
Yeah, this is the same book, the same translator.
Oh, okay.
The only difference is that my audiobook is a revised version of this one. So every now and then you're following along and the text just changes a couple words or lines and goes back, but it's like 95% the same.
Okay, that's right then.
He just, you're translating from the Sanskrit, and that's just not a language that translates exactly.
There's a lot open to interpretation, I guess.
Well, yeah, in his introductory chapters, he explains sometimes why he doesn't translate some terms, because he says you're doing your readers a disservice. Like one of the most famous was Oppenheimer quoted, "Now I am death,
The Destroyer of Worlds. Yeah.
destroyer of world." He says, "Yeah, that's an okay translation." He says a more accurate, because it's either death or time.
Oh.
And he says, "I am time, destroyer of all worlds." And then speaking of in the context of the, like, it's not really a spoiler, but it's when this deity called Krishna is sort of a human avatar. He says, "I'm going to let you see me as I really am." And then it's just this being that's everything all at once, from all beginning of time to all destruction, all people, all animals. It's just everything. So I think this translation is probably a better translation. Of course, getting the Sanskrit would be better, but
I suppose you can't really spoil a 3,000-year-old book, though, can you?
no, no, you can't.
Spoiler alert! Especially when there's close, probably almost 1 billion Hindus on the planet as well. So
No, but it's not even a story. I mean, it's talking about how you react to the world and what you believe.
So it's not even really like one of these epics. It is actually just a kind of philosophical.
Well, here's the curious thing. This is part of the Mahabharata, which is apparently like a 3,000, 5,000 some page epic. And that is an epic. And in that epic, you have one family getting ready to go to battle with another family. And then it breaks off with this. This is one soldier saying, "I don't want to fight my family. Their family, why should I have to fight them?" And it's sort of like a time standstill moment where this deity Krishna comes and says, "This is why you have to participate in this fight." So you get the 200 pages.
You're not tempted to read the whole thing for March of the Mammoths, then?
I do want to read more of this epic eventually, but even that might be 3,000 pages may not be doable in them.
Scott Bryant says he's reading Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. We'll be finishing it this weekend. In my opinion, it deserves the praise it has gotten. It's crazy, but one of the most interesting experiences. Now, I really want to read it. I've not read it yet. I've got it there, and I'm hoping to fit it in. Has anyone else read it? Greg, I think you mentioned just now.
I've read it. I've read it twice. I read it once in the 90s, and it just blew me away. It just... And then I listened to the audiobook, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that. And I really liked it, but I think it's a book that when you first experience it, you're going to get the most out of that book, because it's, and at least for me, it taught me a lot about India and Pakistan that as an American, I just don't really know a whole lot about.
So the whole partition and everything, yeah?
Right, because I didn't know they were partitioned once one country. As an American, they don't teach that.
All three of them: Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India.
Bangladesh. Was that right?
Bangladesh.
What Salman Rushdie book would you guys recommend starting with? I've never read Salman Rushdie.
I've only read one actually, and it was The Moor's Last Sigh, and I really liked it. So
I read The Moor's Last Sigh. I liked it. I liked Midnight Children better. The Enchantress of Florence, I could skip that. You can skip that. He does have a good memoir, Anton something. That's it.
Did you read the famous one, though? Of course.
I am going to be reading that sometime this year.
So Jim says been reading his wife's been reading Stieg Larsson, the Stieg Larsson books again in English. That's good.
I've got the first three.
Well, there are only 3 Stieg Larsson books.
That's true.
The others were somebody else finished them off, right?
They continued the series. They're still continuing as far as I know, but I have the original 3, and I enjoyed them. a lot of content in there. You know, they're big books, but they're enjoyable.
I mean, she's a character you could do caricatures of, probably, Elizabeth Solander.
That's true. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. She'd make a good draw.
Have you seen, Randy, have you seen Jim's art? Because I think last time it was just the three of us, and Jim was revealing his, well, not so secret past as well, it's not a past, is it? Because you still do it, as doing art and illustrations and caricatures and things. Really brilliant cartoon.
I have to get back to it.
Brilliant.
I haven't, but I did see Jim's video about Raymond Chandler, and just this is how good that video was. Another booktuber contacted me and said, "You've got to watch this video," before I'd even had a chance to see it.
Wow!
So
that's
you're setting BookTube on fire, Jim.
Oh, that's a good
you
thing.
and Raymond Chandler.
Yeah.
Well, I think even Steve raved about it when just before during your live as well, wasn't he? He was like, "Did you see Jim's video on?" That
was a good live stream you did, Randy, with Steve. I watched that last night. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I always enjoy getting on with Steve because we're both just a couple of gas bags.
It's too short though. It's too short. I'd literally just settled into it, and I thought, this is getting good. And then it's like Zoom's telling me we're out of time, and I'm like, you haven't got to the meat of it yet. You just teased me with like some hors d'oeuvres, and that's that.
Well, the funny thing with Steve too is we always talk briefly before we start recording, and I realized, 2 or 3 minutes into our conversation, damn it, we should have been recording the instant we started, because that would have been great on video.
But the thing is, right, he doesn't seem to realize it. I don't know if he's watching or not, but he can, not maybe manage this one, StreamYard, but because I think he records on his maybe mobile device of some sort, you do on your tablet or phone, and you can invite a guest now on YouTube Live, which is really easy to use. So, but it would be live then. But
right.
It doesn't matter.
I don't know about you guys, but I mean, when we were on last Friday, and then we signed out, but we stuck around. Like there's things that probably say in a conversation that's not live. And we had a pretty good conversation after we signed out of the live stream last Friday. I thought,
we save all the best stuff for after we've signed out.
We save all the good stuff. Yeah.
Right. Our best material.
Algorithm man.
Sorry, Bill says hello.
Hello, Bill.
Tim's reading room. A book that I'm reading and enjoying is Of Human Bondage by W. Somerset Maugham. This is the first time reading any of his books. I'm reading in ebook form. I didn't realize it has over 700 pages.
I like that one.
He's good, Maugham. And of course, a real life agent.
I've read 3 of their books by him. What do I read? My favorite is probably still The Razor's Edge. Even though that's kind of a weird book. I like the one about the artist. The Gauguin. It's not Paul Gauguin, but it's Paul Gauguin.
I can't remember.
I know.
Maybe. I'm
drawing a blank. And then I read The Magician, which has Aleister Crowley, which is not Aleister Crowley.
Oh,
he's good at doing that. It's so and so who's not so and so. Yeah.
Well, if you hold on for 1 second, now I'm really curious. What is the mom?
Crowley was quite a character. He was.
He's doing an Alan.
I have a 2-volume set of his short stories. It's complete short stories.
I have that one too. It's The Moon and Sixpence.
Oh yeah,
that's like an occult detective kind of thing, wasn't it?
Could have just waited a second and someone would have told us.
Yep.
Bill says he tried to read the Bhagavad Gita in the Penguin Black Classic, translated by Laurie L. Patton, but didn't get very far.
Well, the problem is with a book like this is you're going to read it, and you're going to understand that you don't understand everything in this book the first time you read it. It's just the way it goes. And the way I explain, like Hindus would read this and they reread the text over and over again, and they memorize it because there's just so much depth in there. and a lot of advice on how to live a proper life. There's like many different paths you can take.
I guess it's not that surprising, though, is it? I mean, devout Christians do reread
the Bible, absolutely,
and the Bible. So
devout Muslims reread the Quran, and the Jews do the Torah. So not unexpected. So my advice is, if you don't understand it, be happy that you don't understand, and just say, okay, on the second round, I'll understand a little bit more. If you want to go for a second round. Now, see, for me, like, I'm doing all the religions, so I'm happy with just that surface level understanding, and know there's more depth that I'm never going to get to.
Yeah.
What do we got here? There's a short story collection by Rushdie called East West. That's an easy introduction to Rushdie. So
okay. Thanks. Yep.
And Salman Rushdie also has a fantasy book called Victory City, which interests Jim more than his other books. Christina, hi all, happy to be here.
Hey,
well,
Christina.
happy that you're here, of course. Lou G, gas bags. Well, yes, that's true. Ariane says we need a behind the scenes or behind the curtain conversation. Oh well, okay. We'll have to come on one of these days then. Randy, back over to you, mate. I'm just curious, because obviously you've been involved in books for a long time, obviously having your own shop and things like that, but now you've got a channel and things. Did your friends or acquaintances, did people always come to you to ask for recommendations, or have they started doing so recently because you have this channel? Do your friends even care, or is it
Most of
like...
my friends aren't readers.
Yeah,
a few of them are. Some of the ones that are readers wouldn't dream of getting a recommendation from me. But I do have a lot of friends who are readers. Most of them don't come to me for any kind of recommendations, though. Which is too bad, I think, because I usually have some interesting recommendations. Although, one of the women I went out with recently, we actually read a couple of Ann Tyler books together. So that was great. She didn't like The Accidental Tourist, so now I have to go reread it.
Is that
She didn't like the
J.K.
ending.
Rowling? Or is that J.K. Rowling, or I'm
And
thinking of a different one?
that's a different
Ann
one.
Tyler.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, Ann Tyler. Okay.
Yeah. She's cranked out scads of novels, but they're all about these really nice but eccentric people and families, and often they cover multiple generations of the families. They're really cozy, but they're lovely.
See, I like those kind of things. I mean, I remember in let's say the mid 80s, there seemed to be a lot, probably coming from the previous decade through the 70s, a lot of these kind of big, almost one volume epics, like along the James Michener lines, the James Clavell lines, and things like this, where you'd have these big sagas, really, sometimes only in one volume. And I think I was talking with Sean Stanfast last year, and we were thinking of doing a Michener year this year, but for different reasons we didn't do it. But yeah, I love those kind of big saga books. Actually, they need their own event as well. Actually, there's all sorts of things you could do there.
I love Clavell, but I've only read Shogun of his, and I have Gaijin on my shelf, which I've got to get to. But Brian Durfee just did a featured all the James Clavell books on his channel. But I love Shogun. It's one of my favorite books. Just awesome.
I've read all of his except his last, Whirlwind.
Oh yeah.
I still think my favorite is King Rat. I'm sort of on. Most people think Shogun's better, but I think King Rat is better.
See, really? I quite like Noble House, actually, and Taipan, the foundation story of Hong Kong, one that he did. But I liked all of them. I liked all of them, except I have to say that for me, Whirlwind was the weaker one.
I've heard that it's just not up to snuff for the other ones, and it's a long book, and it's like, oh, do I want to put my time and effort into a long?
Well, it's the only one where they released another edition of it, and I can't remember the name, but I can't remember if it's just the love story from Whirlwind
I remember that.
or they took out the love story for Whirlwind. One of the two. But yeah, it does go on and on. It just takes forever for it to get going. It feels like, yeah. But what I just love the fact that there's always a subtle and sometimes not so subtle reference to all the other books in it. Because it's always like, even in from Shogun or something, I think one of the Japanese businessmen in Noble House is somehow related to that family. And,
it's all the family of the guy in what's the second one? Taipan.
Yeah.
The founder of the business. And you're still going to that same business with his descendants running it.
Well, because it's all based on a real thing. Yeah, there was a company called Jardine Matheson, which is what the company in his books are based on. Yeah, this Struan company was based on Jardine Matheson out of Hong Kong. So, but I don't know. I mean, I actually read them for the first time while I was in Japan, so it was kind of cool, actually.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, but it was. My parents weren't too happy though, because it was the days before. I think you couldn't easily get. Maybe there wasn't even Amazon in Japan then. It's 20 years ago now. But they actually sent me by post all the books eventually. I think Shogun was already in the flat that I was in, and I read it and I wanted to read the others. And of course, they're big bricks of things, and they'd been sent from the UK to Japan. So, Christina's asking a question here. Sorry, completely off topic. Excuse me. Would you guys ever be open to making a video or vlog on the little free libraries in your neighborhood?
That's where I got this one. On my way to take my wife to work, there was a little free library, and that's where I picked that one up.
You should have bought it.
There's at least 2 or 3 others that I know. Sorry, Greg.
No, you go ahead. I thought you were done. So finish yours.
Oh no, I was just saying there's at least 2 or 3 others that I know of in the area.
So, Greg.
Oh, well, I've thought about doing that, but sometimes I go to these little free libraries and they're just empty.
Oh,
Like they got 1 or 2 books and it's just been decimated. I don't think they're being kept by whoever created them.
Oh, that's too bad.
And a lot of times it's a lot of children's books that you see in there.
Yeah, a lot of self-help books and how-to books.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Apparently,
religious texts.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
There was one little free library that had a lot of classic science fiction that I went to, and I was like really surprised. Oh, this Michael K. Vaughan recommends this guy, and like they had one of the old Elric paperbacks.
Oh, nice.
So I grabbed those. So the problem is that one's inside of a grocery store. So I should go back. And Christina was saying, yeah, I could do a vlog.
I haven't checked, but apparently there's a website that shows the locations of all the little free
absolutely
libraries.
You can get it on your phone.
Oh, okay. I haven't looked into it.
You download it and you tap it, and it'll start giving you driving directions to the next one.
Really? Okay. Yeah, maybe we should do a little video on it, each of us.
We could.
Well, I could, but no one's going to understand any of the books I find in my free libraries.
So they'd all be in text, yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, there is one little one. Just we have like a Renaissance Square, literally just like 30 seconds that way, just down the hill there. There's one, but I think someone's repurposed some old rabbit hutch or something to put the books in. I've never looked at it because I'm just too lazy to go down and up again, and for knowing that there's nothing there that I want. But our school kind of pioneered it here in this area, was because obviously we have this, quite strong winters generally. A lot of the bus stops in the villages are like small houses, like tiny one-room houses. So I did do, Christina, a video, but it's one of my early ones where I showed inside the bus stop, which is a giant little free library, if you like. So that's really cool. And the only English book I found in there was an English Czech dictionary, unfortunately. But but now quite a few of the other villages do the same things, have little free libraries within the bus stops, and they put in you know, in ours they've got like comfy armchairs. There's actually a piano in there you can play as well while you're waiting for the bus. There's a nice carved wooden table with a chess, done out for chess. Yeah, chessboard on it and the pieces and stuff. There's all sorts of stuff in there for people to mess around with. It's very nice. It looks like a really nice kind of old living room from the 1920s or something. So, yeah.
Interesting.
And Randy, what about in Texas? You got free libraries?
We have free libraries. I live in Denton, Texas, which is a university town. And we've got 2 universities here, University of North Texas and TWU. And we have scads of little free libraries around here. But sadly, the selection at them is only good after I donate books. Otherwise, it's religious tracts. There's always religious tracts, generally a lot of self-help stuff, and not good self-help stuff either. You're not going to find the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin or even How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You're going to find Anthony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. God help us. So, Richard Simmons.
I don't know.
I guess Richard Simmons is on everybody's mind lately because I guess Pauly Shore is going to play him in a movie.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've been talking about that. But I guess Simmons released a rare statement today saying that he did not authorize this movie and has nothing to do with it. So, he disappeared like 10 years ago. He just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I thought he died, actually.
He was everywhere, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's still alive. Somebody did a podcast where they were trying to figure out where did he go? He was everywhere for years. And then he just disappeared. And he just became a recluse for whatever reason.
He's
he
75,
was ubiquitous.
right?
He was everywhere back in the day. You saw him in everything.
Yeah.
For 20 years or more.
Yeah.
He could appear anywhere they'd have him. I don't know how he did it. He was on Howard Stern all the time, and Howard Stern mocked him mercilessly. Never seemed to bother him, but maybe he just got tired of that eventually. But
He always seemed like a nice, genuine person.
Well, maybe he got old, As
He
you
did
get
get
older,
old.
your limbs trying to do that kind of
Hey,
exercise
man,
every day.
if I make enough money too, you'll see me disappear. You'll never hear from me too.
Right.
On some tropical island somewhere. You won't be hearing from me ever.
You wouldn't do your little book tube anymore, even if you had millions. What else are you gonna do? I would.
That's true.
Imagine the book hauls. I bought
I'd
this
have my own
library.
little free library on the island.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. I wonder if anyone. I imagine a few people have probably done it where they've donated to their little free library and then a few months later go back and go, "Oh, this looks good," without realizing. It must have happened to Steve. I mean, imagine how many times he's probably taken books to the Brattle and then brought the same ones back again a couple of years later. I mean,
Well, Mark, the first year I was on BookTube, or the second year, we did The Hamlet by William Faulkner, and I had 2 copies, and I offered to mail one away to anyone who wanted it, and no one took me up on the offer. So I took it to a little free library, and then I went back a year later, and it was still there. I bet you if I go do that little free library tour that Christina suggests, I'll still see that Faulkner book sitting in that little free library after 2.5 years to 3 years.
quite sad, really, isn't it? It's quite sad.
It's funny. My wife works at a thrift store, so I'll donate books every now and then. Just get a big pile of books, and I'll put it there, and then she'll text me later and show me a picture of a book. Oh, here's one you might like, and everyone, I've donated that. That was my book. She's done that about 10 times, and she knows me so well, the books I like, and she keeps showing me the books I've already donated. So that's kind of funny.
We've got a few more comments here. So Christina actually says, I'm a big fan of those vlogs/videos. But those booktubers never have the same taste in books as me. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's often quite a lot of the younger ones who go out. And sometimes I see them going through the free libraries and they skirt over the book I'm interested in. I'm like teased by what the cover is, and then they pull out some crap. Gareth's here. Hi, Gareth.
Hey, Gareth.
Gareth.
Have to point out, Gareth and I will actually be live tomorrow. He's launching a new series.
I saw that.
I tell you though, I'd recommend you do it, even though I've not done it yet. But I'm sure it's going to be great. But it is tough. It's discussing 10 favorite films, and I had made like a long list of probably 50, and then I had to narrow it down to 10. And it was quite tricky.
That would be tough.
And then I had to really be honest with myself as well, and try not to be pretentious and choose a film that maybe I'd seen once that was really good. I thought it was great, but I can't really say it's a favorite. So it was like, no, that's away. So there are a few ones on there. Or maybe I should. I will regret revealing as favorites probably.
Okay, off the top of your head, everyone, what's the first favorite movie that pops into your head right now?
Zulu.
Or you might be Zulu.
I can spoil one. I'm sure Gareth won't mind.
Yeah.
Mine
Greg?
would probably Chinatown.
Oh, I love Chinatown. Yeah. What's that, Randy?
Casablanca.
Oh man, yeah. Gunga Din.
I thought it was going to be Roadhouse, Randy.
Roadhouse is great. Roadhouse is like a drum with a hole in it. Hard to beat.
Well, has anyone noticed that none of the movies that we mentioned are less than 40 years old, maybe 50?
None of them are from the 1980s, which Steve Donahue claims is the greatest decade of filmmaking ever.
Well, I have to say there are two probably on my list, my top 10 list from the 80s. Now, annoyingly, Casablanca was on my long list, and now I'm regretting not putting it on there on the short list.
It's a good movie, boy.
It is a great movie, and it is one of my favorites.
It would be that one and Maltese Falcon for me.
See, I'm having buyer's remorse already, kind of feeling.
We see, Mark. I would say that the 80s was the decade that film jumped the shark. And
yeah,
it could.
And my theory, I'll probably get heat for this, is that in the United States they introduced PG-13 as a rating, and all of a sudden, all movies, if you wanted, had to be geared towards that PG-13 rating, which meant that you're basically making movies for teenagers.
Yeah.
But you see, as somebody who was born in 1980, so grew up with 80s films, they do hold a that. I mean, probably because you're all roughly a decade older, or maybe a little bit
I
more.
was born in 64.
64.
Okay, so let's say 10 to 15
years. Younger than I look.
10 to 15 years older, you're feeling towards the likes of John Hughes and his films. You're not going to have the... So for a kid growing up in the 80s, the films were great. They were great. I mean, I still think of them with fondness now. But it wouldn't be to your, as you say, to your taste. They were made for teens and kids, really. But, when I think back at the Goonies, I don't know, Uncle Buck, The Great Outdoors, all these National Lampoons, all these movies, none of them are going to win any kind of award for the the artistic value or anything like that. But for pure nostalgia, sentimental value, they're all priceless films to me. Yeah,
and
but none of them are on my list. So,
probably popular with the audience too. I mean, I'm sure they did really well, those movies.
They were just so good. I mean, I cannot think, when I think of the crap kids have to put up with today, compared to these great movies. I mean, The Goonies is just a great film for a kid. It
was a golden age for movies. One of my first girlfriends worked at a movie theater, so we got free popcorn and free soda pops as long as we had our own containers. And we got into the movies for free too. She was one of the best girlfriends I ever had.
Didn't matter how big the container was, though.
It didn't. They didn't care.
No.
Well, let's face it. Soda
I
pop
worked at
and popcorn doesn't cost anything. It's the containers that cost something.
Exactly. I worked at a movie theater, so yeah, you know, as much free popcorn as you can handle, you know.
Ferris
But,
Bueller's Day Off. You see, there's another one. Great movie.
Well,
Star
that's
Trek 2, The
a
Wrath of
movie.
Khan.
yes, I
The
like.
Thing,
Hmm?
Poltergeist, Ghostbusters. It really was a remarkable decade.
Yeah, Spaceballs.
Spaceballs, yes. Flash Gordon.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
I mean, not to mention the TV shows of the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the
That's my wife.
80s. Hi, Miss.
She said hi. I could bring me a coffee and a donut.
Oh,
Huh?
Sorry.
Jim's getting room service.
Oh,
Yeah.
The A-Team, MacGyver, all these things, brilliant.
I can.
Rider, Airwolf, Magnum,
Oh,
yeah.
Magnum P.I. Simon and Simon.
Simon and Simon.
Yeah.
Remington Steele was a great one.
Moonlighting.
Simon and Simon.
Still the greatest television show ever.
The name of
The
their dog was
Scarecrow.
Marlowe.
The Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
The Scarecrow, Mrs. King. Yeah. See,
Love Boat, Fantasy Islands.
What was it? Red Dwarf.
Red Dwarf in the UK. Or was that
British
90s?
sci-fi?
I think.
Was it 90s?
1991. But the 90s were great too. That's what I mean. There's something rubbish happened around like 2003. Well, for me though, I have to say, and this is kind of a weird thing, is that a lot of this pop culture stuff did stop for me in 2003 because I left. I went to Japan and I stayed several years there, and I came back. I visited England once in like 4 years away, and I missed a load of stuff. You know, I was coming back and everyone's talking about someone called Amy Winehouse, for example. I had no idea who she was, all this kind of stuff. So I felt like I had been, you know, stuck in a different planet or something, but they were great. We've got quite a few comments, of course, again. Where are we? Jim liked Noble House too. Well, of course, Jim, because you're also a man of good taste. Yanni's here saying hi from Cornwall. Ariane, my neighborhood has one about every half a mile. That's a free library.
Oh, she should be doing the vlog and
Yeah.
getting a whole bunch.
Tim's church has a little free library, which is in the parking lot over by the playground. Bill says, is Sue Grafton any good? I found several of her books in a little free library, but not book A.
I enjoy Sue Grafton. Yeah. Kinsey Milhone Mysteries, I think.
Yeah, I have not read. I have not read any of her books. So
Yeah.
They're excellent.
Yeah.
Are they the
they're really
ones
good.
like A is for alibi, M is for murder? These ones, or
yeah,
She didn't make Z. She didn't make it to the final one.
She
think
got
she made
25 of them.
Yeah, she made it up to Y.
yeah.
and what
And I
happened?
guess
to her?
well, she died.
Well, she died. She'd been writing them since what, the
Was
80s?
she
early
murdered?
80s? Late. No.
No, I don't think
No.
so. But
I don't think so.
her estate said they're never going to authorize
No.
the final book
And
in the series. It's just not going to happen.
not
But
by
I
another
agree
author.
on it. It's just like it would just be capitalizing.
To be honest, though, what would it be though? Z is for
For
Ziploc bag over the head. No, I don't know. What would it be?
maybe that's why she never wrote it.
Z
She
is
said,
for
I can't
zombie.
think of anything.
Yeah, that's it.
Zamboni,
Zamboni. Oh wow.
murder hockey rink or something. Get run over by a Zamboni.
Gareth needs to read some Camus very soon as he's teaching Theatre of the Absurd.
Oh.
Oh, see, I've never read them, so I'm looking forward to reading that one.
Jim, I'll talk about L'Étranger, The Outsider, in the video I just put up today. It was the third book I read in French and my favorite of the French books that I've read. Bill is visiting Goodwill later on today. His book buying ban is falling by the wayside, I guess, there, as he says.
I'm with you.
Gareth permits me a teaser rather than a spoiler for naming one of the films on my top 10 list. Jim's favorite film, Fight Club, American Beauty, or Amelie? Well, Amelie is definitely a good film. I'm not sure. American Beauty I did enjoy, but I don't know if it would be be up there. Ariane has to get back to work. Gareth says, you'll never be happy with what you pick. It's just 10 films, but it's fun to chat about favorites as well. Jim's in the Jim and Greg Club.
Hey.
Also born in 1964.
Nice.
Mark Spring Chicken, he is. John Hughes, yes. Sorry, I'm rushing through them here, but Christina, yes, I love 80s movies too. Ghostbusters, Jaws, Indiana Jones, Gremlins, Back to the Future, of course, as well. Yes, so many good
Jaws.
ones.
Jaws is such a good movie, and Raiders of the Lost
Jaws
Ark.
70s?
I think Jaws
Late
1
70s.
is Jaws 1 is 70s. I don't know about Jaws 2, but definitely Jaws 3 is 80s. So, born 1984, Christina was. Ooh. And Gareth says the Breakfast Club is still discussed a lot and raved about by his students who were born in 2007. So, yeah, excellent. Yeah, so yeah, it's a tough thing if you have to do it, I guess, to come up with the list.
You know what, Mark? You really don't need the top 10. You just need 10 of your favorites when you look at it that way. You know?
Yeah. That's what I did. I was thinking, like, what films can I pretty much watch anytime? Like, pull it off the shelf and put it in and never really get tired of it.
Yeah.
I think the oldest is from 1938, maybe, and the newest is 1987 or 88. So there's nothing really brand new in there, but they all, I think, have some kind of nostalgic or sentimental or emotional attachment for me. So, you know, but I'll save the stories behind them, of course, for tomorrow's video.
Of course.
But yeah, but you're not a big film watcher, are you, Greg? Or is it just a big TV watcher? You're not.
I watch maybe 1 or 2 movies a year at the most. And sometimes it's not by my choice. It's that you know, because we have to celebrate the holidays with my wife's sister, and they always want to watch a movie because they're the kind of people that they watch movies every day. So it's just, you know. And the thing is, like I'm not really like a fan of modern movies and contemporary movies. Like I'm more big in like the 70s type of, you know, like Chinatown, or I want to see the French Connection. I want to rewatch the French Connection again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, such a good movie, man.
He's another one who just retired, and he is still alive, Gene Hackman, but he's ancient. He's like 95 or something.
He's in a retirement home, but he's still doing well, apparently, from what I understand. Right?
Is he right? He didn't go into writing books?
He did.
He did write a book. Yeah.
He's written 3, I think.
Has he?
Yeah. Each one of them was a Western.
Yeah, I remember some people talking about reading the West. Now, how much of that did he really write? Or did he go to the ghostwriter and say, I have an idea for a Western, here it is?
I have a feeling with him, he wrote his own books. He's Gene Hackman, man. You know.
Can do anything.
Yeah, he can do anything.
Brilliant actor.
He's one of the best character actors out there. Gene Hackman.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Who's one of those movies that I can watch endlessly and never get tired of?
French Connection. Oh.
Oops.
Sorry, Randy, you cut out there. What can you watch?
Hoosiers is one of those movies that I never get tired of. The one where he's a basketball coach.
See, I'm not a sports guy, but I like sports movies because they speak to more than just sports. You know,
right? I'm the same way.
Yeah, a little life lesson in there, and they're always enjoyable to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a good movie. Hoosiers is a good movie.
Hoosiers is a great movie. Yeah, yeah. Well, Gene, you know, and it probably wouldn't be a great movie if it weren't for Gene Hackman.
Oh, he just ramps up anything he's in. He was in Unforgiven. He was a bad guy in Unforgiven.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Little Bill.
Yeah. Such a good movie.
Oh, one of the greatest villains in a Western I've ever seen, Little Bill.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, he was my Lex Luthor growing up as well. So.
Oh yeah, he was great as Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still the best. Chewing up some scenery in that movie.
Well, you know, actually, damn it, I didn't put that on my list either. But Superman 2, I know it's cheesy, but I absolutely adored that film, and I watched it.
Great.
Superman.
Superman 1's good, but for me, Superman 2, I don't know. The whole General Zod thing, I loved it. And that, for me, it's one of those epic moments of cinematic climaxes in a film for me, is the whole, when he's like, now kneel before Zod, take my hand and kneel before Zod. And he like crushes, Superman crushes General Zod's hand. And of course, he switched the thing around, and Hackman's there as Luthor going, he did this, but he did it to there. The whole thing's brilliant. He picks him up and throws him down the ice pit. But I watched it like 2 years ago, and it's still great.
Yeah, they're two of the best superhero movies ever. Was those? I think Superman is probably the best superhero movie ever. That one and number 2, because number 2 was pretty damn close to number 1 in quality. I think. Yeah,
it was brilliant. That's so brilliant. And even the haunting narration by Marlon Brando, of course, as his father, as Jor-El, is it, and brilliant. Amazing. And I was so gutted when they did the new Superman movies, and they didn't use. For me, the big part was they didn't use John Williams' music anymore. You can't. It's just so synonymous with Superman. I can't. I just can't get my head around it. So
I mean, Henry Cavill makes a good Superman, but they just weren't the same. Didn't have the same feel to them at all. They made him much darker, and it's Superman. You can't make him a dark character. That's what we have Batman for. I mean, it's supposed to be two separate.
Yeah, he's like kind of all American, kind of superhero, isn't he? I mean, that's why I quite appreciated that. I don't know, probably you guys didn't watch it, but the series Smallville.
I loved Smallville.
Lovely show.
And the way they did link it in at the end, the way they brought in even John Williams' music, which just as the climax at the end, I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. So
he did a good job as Clark Kent, that actor. I forget his name, but he was very good.
Canadian guy, actually, isn't he? Tom Welling?
Tom Welling, I think he is Canadian too. Yeah, my kids love that show too. Like I'd watch, we'd watch it together, and that's there's some good memories there too with that series.
Michael Rosenbaum was definitely the best Lex Luthor we've seen on screen. As much as I love Gene Hackman, Rosenbaum just nailed that role.
Yeah. Yep.
Having to message Gareth to tell him I need to change one of the movies on my list. So.
No, you're locked in now, Mark. You're locked in.
I'm locked in. Tom, hey Tom, good to see you. Age murdered Sue Grafton. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
For Jim with his alphabet tags. Oh yes, of course, Jim did a good series of book tags or tag videos based around the alphabet. He combined Y and Z, although I have a feeling Jim would prefer I said Z these days. Z is for Zodiac.
Jim's British. He'd go
Z.
But
no, Jim's gone down this road where he realizes most of his viewers and things are American. So he's if you look at his spelling and stuff, he adopts the American spelling. So, I steadfastly hold to putting extra U's in my words and things like that. So
yeah, me too. As a Canadian, yes, I heartily agree.
Z for Zodiac Killer. Yeah, that could have worked. Yeah. For Jim, other films, The Italian Job with Michael Caine. Well, I did say Zulu. It's got Michael Caine in it. Yeah. The Love Bug. Yeah. Brilliant.
The Man Who Would Be King with Michael Caine and Sean Connery.
Oh, God damn it. I wish we were not having this discussion.
Oh, no, Mark.
Such a great movie.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
This is the thing. There's going to be so many that you just don't think of straight away, but are just brilliant. And because I don't watch a lot these days.
Neither do I. No, I'd rather just watch YouTube, watch my booktubers these days.
Midnight in Paris is always a pleasure.
That was good.
Tim's reading me. I went to a lot of movies in the 80s. I was in my 20s, so couldn't afford them. Plus, I didn't have any kids back then. Fee's here. Hey, boys, just finishing up my 8th chemo cycle tonight before heading home. Have been in the ward since 9 a.m. this morning.
Oh.
You're feeling better.
Hope you're all good.
Yeah, definitely. That's harsh. Of course, I don't know where you are though, whether it's 9 a.m. and now it's like 6 p.m. or yeah, but that's horrible. So Hackman, a character actor, take that back. I agree. Hackman's one of the best actors out there. Opinions on Oppenheimer. Has anyone seen it?
Haven't
I
seen
have
it
not.
yet. No.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Good. We're waiting for
Probably
it.
the best movie I saw last year.
Really? Yeah, waiting on seeing it. We're gonna watch it. We're just waiting. My wife
So I'm
wants
gonna
to do
mute.
the
I'm
whole.
gonna mute my mic and let you guys just talk.
My wife wants to do the Barbenheimer thing, Barbie and then Oppenheimer for the full experience.
Why? I mean, I heard of a few people doing that, and I
don't know.
didn't get it.
I'll be happy with just Oppenheimer.
They were released on the same day.
Yeah. And it was like, soon after COVID, I guess, and people just kind of made a whole experience out of doing both movies, I guess. But,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Oppenheimer, I would definitely watch it, but the Barbie movie just never tickled my fancy.
well, we're not the audience they're trying to cater to with Barbie, as well. I'm saying.
Speak for yourself.
It's good. I'm sure it's good. Ryan Gosling, I'm a fan of, and he's a Canadian dude. So,
what we got here? So Superman 2 is fantastic. Yes, it is. You're absolutely right. Tim says, I worked in Cheyenne Mountain when War Games came out. Shush! Sorry.
What is it? The dog walking by.
I don't know what
War
it is.
Games.
He ran off into the other room also to bark, so I don't know what he's playing at. He wants attention, don't you? Yes, you do. Now he's giving me his little toy, little monkey. So
you're not paying him enough attention, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I do all the time. That's the thing. And it's diverted for an hour or two on this, and he thinks that it's like anyone will think I never spend any time with him. I laughed throughout the movie, and people couldn't understand why. Christina, Batman's my favorite superhero, probably because I grew up with Michael Keaton as Batman. Yeah, he was good.
Well, Batman is my favorite superhero as well. I've got all kinds of Batman comics behind me here, like at least 4 of these milk cartons and more, but Batman is my favorite as well.
Well, superheroes never gelled with me.
No.
I mean, when I was growing up, Batman was Adam West.
Yeah. Oh,
and that was just.
I couldn't figure where, like my older brothers and everybody's laughing at the show, and I took it so serious. I said, "What are you laughing at? This is serious stuff. This show."
Adam West serious?
Yeah, well, yeah, to a little kid, yeah.
Yep.
And then
if you're the right age.
Yeah.
And then there was the Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah.
And so
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, is that the one you're thinking of?
No,
he's talking about the earlier one, the very first one by Filmation.
I remember that too.
But
the
Paul
theme
Souls
tune,
did the voice.
Spider-Man does whatever Spider can.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Iconic.
But no, Superman was always my favorite growing up.
But there was a Superman TV show in black and white too.
And it starred one of the Harlan boys from Gone with the Wind. And he
George Reed.
And he killed himself, didn't he?
Yeah.
And what about you have like Captain America, right? Was there any Canadian superheroes?
Captain Canuck.
Captain Canuck.
Canuck, yeah.
Not Captain Overly Polite.
Well, maybe he was overly polite.
Captain Courtesy. Captain Courtesy.
Yeah. There was a lot of Canadian superheroes in the Second World War because of the paper shortages, and they like Canadians ended up publishing their own superhero comics up here in Canada. So you had, I forget that there was one called Nirvana, and I can't think of all the other ones offhand, but there was a lot of Canadian superheroes in the Second World War, and it would be kind of nice to see a comeback of them. You know, if
Yeah.
somebody said, "Hey, let's refurbish these old Canadian superheroes," and of course, Alpha Flight was by Marvel, was a Canadian superhero group, but it was created in the States. But they were all Canadians. Sasquatch and the Guardian,
Puck,
Shaman, yeah,
Puck.
Puck, yeah, Puck. He was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, he was great, wasn't he?
yeah,
That was one of the earliest comic books I remember buying. Is the one where Alpha Flight guest starred in the X-Men.
oh, is that right? Yeah,
Yeah, but I'm a little weird. I have a different set of favorite superheroes. My favorite superhero, of course, was Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze.
oh yeah, awesome.
Yeah, he was my favorite, and then Green Arrow was my second favorite.
Yeah, the Neil Adams Green Arrow.
Yeah, he was so great. You know, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow were some of my favorite comic books growing up. But even then, I was a what do you call it, a liberal, I guess, because Green Arrow was known as he was kind of the hero for the working man, at least in the 70s and 80s. He was.
Yeah, they still play him up that way.
Yeah, which, it made for an interesting character. Definitely more interesting than what he was before, which was basically Batman, except everything was an arrow. He even had an arrow car and an arrow cave.
Yeah, and he had his sidekick Speedy.
Right.
The one of the first comics I ever read when I was a kid was Avengers number 76, and it didn't have a cover, but it raised the bar so much, that one comic, to this day, that I still compare every comic book I read to that specific issue. It was written by Roy Thomas with art by John Buscema, and it was just perfect. Everything about that comic was perfect. And I can't remember if it's exactly the first one I read, because I read a lot of Batman then too. And, but that's the one. I'll just say that's probably the first comic book I remember reading. Just incredible work.
And did you ever have sorry, Jim. Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
Did you ever have any regional superheroes in the US? So is there I don't know, Texas superhero comic or anything?
They had the Texas Twister, didn't they, Randy? And he was a bad guy, and his name was
the Lone Ranger, a superhero? I don't know. Is he Texan?
I don't know if he was a Texan or not, but I guess he was an ancestor of the Green Hornet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I suppose he's a Ranger, isn't he? So Texas Ranger. He probably was Texan.
Probably so.
Wasn't the Lone Ranger a Yankee?
I don't really remember, and I watched those shows endlessly as a kid, but I don't remember. Texas Rangers were really badass, though, apparently.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
You know, the expression was one ranger, one riot, or one riot, one ranger. In other words, if there was a riot, you only needed one Texas Ranger to go in and take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah, they were the be all and end all, the Texas Rangers. Boy, the other states tried Rangers too. I think they had Arizona Rangers, but they just didn't hit like the Texas Rangers did.
Well, and we still have them here. I mean, not just the baseball team, but I mean, as a law enforcement agency, the Texas Rangers still exist.
Yeah. Yep.
There was that film that was set, I think, in the Depression era, that was out not that long ago, was it Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson?
And
they were like 20th century Texas Rangers.
Well, they were real guys. Those they were based on real guys, and they were real Texas Rangers back in the day. Yeah, that was a good film.
That was a really good film. Can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but that was an excellent film.
It really was.
Yeah, no, it's interesting though. So, I mean, I suppose, of course, the Mounties are different, really, aren't they? In Canada, or was there a ranging aspect to them?
Yeah, the RCMP, but they were pretty badass too, from what I understand. I mean, we had our own frontier up here back in the day.
For sure.
You know, wild frontier. So, and they had to keep the law. You know, the Mounties, the RCMPs. Well, they're called RCMP now. I think they were just the Northwest Mounted Police back then. I don't remember, but yeah, they were something.
Well, it's a grand title, isn't it? The Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, Greg, what's going on in Virginia? Did you have any special Virginian? Are you Virginian born? Or
I was born in Washington, D.C.,
okay.
but grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. So,
So you have The Wire from Maryland. Is it The Wire was in Baltimore? Yeah, Baltimore, Maryland.
The show?
Yeah,
Baltimore
the show
was
The Wire.
further north than from where I was growing up. So,
But it's still Maryland, isn't it? Though.
yes.
Yeah. Where have we got here? So Keaton. Jim, I'm not really a fan of DC Marvel stuff, but did enjoy Logan and Guardians of the Galaxy. It was fun.
Logan was an awesome movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, good swan song for the character. But he's coming
Especially
back.
if you're a fan of Shane.
Oh yeah. Oh,
which I am, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a trope there. The grizzled old veteran, looking after the younger person. That was a very good movie. It was a Western, essentially, Logan.
It really was.
Yeah.
Because I liked it's Alan Moore, isn't it? Who did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I like the fact that
here.
Have you? But I just love the fact he took all those characters and kind of made them into like comic book heroes and stuff. So that's
that was a very, very good series. I love them, and I love the art by Kevin O'Neill, just incredible. And I had to make sure I got them all.
What did you think of the film?
Well, see, I'm a Sean Connery fan, but I mean, the film wasn't at all like the comic or the graphic novel, so I was a little disappointed in it. And that's kind of the film that made Sean Connery say enough is enough. I'm not doing films anymore. Because he was an actor from prior decades, and the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie is more of a modern movie, and I think he just he didn't enjoy how it was done. How movies were made nowadays. It was and it soured him to the whole thing.
But
it was
probably like almost 80 as well when he did it. So
yeah. But it was
E.T.
enjoyable. For what it was enjoyable. Sorry, Mark.
That's all right. E.T. made me cry in the cinema in the 80s. Elvis has opinions. Yes, he generally does. Barbie movie, like the Lego movie, sounds to me like an extended toy advert, but I haven't seen it. Yeah, because I don't know if any of you watched those things on. Obviously, I know the answer for you, Greg, but the things on Netflix about the movies that made us or the toys that made us.
I've watched a couple.
As a small kid, of course, I grew up with the whole He-Man thing, right? And I loved He-Man, absolutely loved it. Never realized that it was the fact that the toys came first and that the cartoon was made to sell the toys rather than vice versa. I thought that was quite interesting, but it was great fun.
And I see when
Did you ever watch
old toys? I don't know, Jim. The Outer Spacemen. There were these alien figures, like made of wire and plastic, and they had one from every planet in the solar system except for Earth.
Oh, I don't remember those toys.
Yeah, they're around for a couple, like 2 years maybe. Then they dropped off.
Like bendy little rubber.
Yeah, and they always broke because it was like a wire inside.
Yeah,
and you could bend their arm 2 or 3 times before the wire broke.
It snapped. I remember those toys. I do remember, figures like that, but I don't recall the Spaceman toys specifically. I did have an astronaut like that, though. Like one of the first things I remember getting as a kid was a big space capsule, like huge, and it had a little astronaut, like a bendy astronaut, like what you're talking about, that would go inside the space capsule. And God, that toy would be worth a lot of money nowadays.
I looked it up, and the originals are going for a couple $100. And
yeah.
As a kid, I just grabbed out of the package and played with them and broke them. And
you're a kid. That's what you're meant to do.
I know.
I mean, you wouldn't cross your mind to keep them in the box, of course. When you're a
No.
kid. I mean,
But if I did, I'd be selling them for $5, $6. Now the problem is, I wouldn't be selling because I don't need the $600. You know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. There's
That's
some
the
Batman
problem.
stuff I sold off years ago that I wish I hadn't. You remember the GI Joes, the big 12-inch GI Joe
Yeah.
figures, and they
I
had the
remember
actual
those.
beard and the scruffy hair, and they were awesome.
And they had the Big Jim. I don't know if they had the Big Jim character.
I had one of those. I had the Big Jim, and I had the Karate Studio, the Big Jim Karate
Was
Studio.
that,
yeah.
was that your nickname in high school? Was it Jim?
No.
But because we had in England, and I think GI Joe, the big ones probably came first or whatever. But we had our own version called Action Man. You might have had them in Canada, but they had the same thing, the frizzy hair. But what they had at the back, did you have the little button at the back that would move his eyes from side to side?
Oh, well, we had a karate chop.
You know,
like
the
one of
button
them-
on the back did a karate chop.
Yeah.
Oh, we had this thing that it's just like a little switch at the back, which you move from side to side, and his eyes would go, like that. But it was
I
brilliant.
vaguely
My sister used to steal him and use him
Oh.
as like what you call it for her Barbies. Yeah. So,
The
Randy, what
military
about you? Were you a GI Joe boy growing up, or what was the toy of choice at Randy's place?
Well, my favorite was my $6 million man action figure, which had the face that came on and went off, but also it had an eye, because you could see far away, and you could look through the back of his head and use the eye as a telescope. And also he had a mechanical arm. You would push a button on his back, and it would make his arm lift up like this. And it said it could hold up to a pound of weight. And being a kid, I didn't realize that a pound and a gallon weren't the same thing. I was always trying to get my $6 million man to lift up a gallon of milk, which of course is way more than a pound. And he couldn't do it. And I was like, man, this is a ripoff.
This is more like the $6 man.
Yeah. But that was my toy of choice, was my $6 million man action figure. That was really great. So
That's funny. I love that show.
Oh, and by the way, the Lego movie's terrific.
Yeah,
I had a crush on
I
Lindsay
was
Wagner in
so
the
surprised
Bible.
with how good the Lego movie was.
it was brilliant. Yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, I watched it with my kids, and wasn't expecting to like it. Had the same opinion as, it's just an ad for Lego, so I don't want to watch this nonsense. And then I sat down and watched it. It's like, oh my God, they should nominate that for Best Picture.
Everything is awesome.
I took my
Everything is
grandkids
awesome.
to see the Batman Lego movie, and that was a good movie. I don't think I saw the actual Lego movie, but the Batman one I saw.
He's
that was
funny,
fun.
the character of Batman in the Lego movies.
Yeah.
But,
perfect guy voicing him too. I can't remember the actor's name, but he's the one on Arrested Development. He played Job on Arrested Development.
Yeah, and he was on Flake, the Netflix series. I forget his name.
also Canadian, I believe.
Is it? Yeah, I think he is too. Yeah.
There's so many I'm not saying he's a great comedic actor, but so many of those great actors of the 80s were Canadians, weren't they? John Candy, Dan Aykroyd.
Shatner's Canadian.
Who?
Shatner's Canadian. William Shatner.
Of course, William Shatner's Canadian. Yeah. I don't know what America would do without the Canadians.
Yeah.
Well, William Shatner being the greatest actor of all time.
Yes.
Arguably.
And what was the name of his cop show?
T.J. Hooker.
T.J. Hooker.
DJ Hooker. That's it. Yeah.
T.J. Hooker.
Yeah. But I have to say, for me, the toys was Lego. Yeah, I mean, it was just definitely what I played the most with, probably. Apparently, the Justice League. There was a Justice League cartoon. The best mystery-solving cartoon was the original Scooby-Doo series. Great.
Yeah,
kids.
I was going to mention about that original Scooby. Now, it's not a spoiler, but the original Scooby-Doo always had a rational explanation at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And someone told me that the modern Scooby-Doo doesn't do that anymore, that they actually encounter true supernatural. Is that something real, or is that something a rumor that I've heard?
That's what I've heard too.
Well, all I know is with the Scooby-Doo, like going back to Sherlock Holmes, like the Supernatural Homes, Hound of the Baskervilles, and people would call it a Scooby-Doo ending because it would start out supernatural, but there'd be a very real, a person behind the mystery, and they almost say it in a condescending way, and they say, oh well, Supernatural Homes is better because there's something really paranormal about it, but no, that's not really Sherlock Holmes, and to say it in a condescending way and say, well, those Sherlock Holmes stories are Scooby-Doo mysteries, that's kind of diminishing them. That's a little,
But
not
to
very good.
me, the Scooby-Doo mystery is really good because you can build it up and then you discover like the real way the real world works. I remember there's a book, if it was read, Carl Sagan's The Demon Haunted World.
Mm.
And he says Scooby-Doo is really the best cartoon to teach kids because it teaches you critical thinking. That there's this thing out there, you can't explain it. But once you explain it, it's all natural.
I agree. Yeah.
Never really liked Scrappy very much, though.
Now, the thing is,
Nobody likes Scrappy.
The original cartoon.
No. But I think he came in, didn't he, in the end of the original run, like in the later seasons, no?
I don't remember. I mean,
how come
but honestly,
how come Scrappy could talk
since the 70s?
Yeah.
What did you say, Jim? Scrappy?
How come Scrappy could walk on two legs and talk, but Scooby couldn't?
Well,
you never figured that out.
Scooby could talk. Ready?
Right there.
Well done.
Yeah.
Apparently, Wolverine was a superhuman agent of the Canadian government.
He was. Weapon
There you
X. Weapon X.
And Christina Alvarez says, I also love movies about Texas Rangers. So, G.I. Joe, yes, absolutely. And Christina says, the vintage toy conversation is making me think about YouTube rabbit holes. What's the last rabbit hole you guys went down on YouTube? Well, vintage toys, probably.
Yeah.
Before that, movies of the 80s.
Yeah.
Now,
well, I have a little bone to pick with you, actually, Randy. I think it was when you were with Steve, and you were talking about people who watch that nobody watches Metropolis for fun. Yeah. And I was thinking, I know at least one person who absolutely would watch Metropolis for fun, and of course that is Mr. Standfast, Mr. Sean D. Standfast. He is absolutely dedicated to those kind of films. But yeah, I knew what you mean. But all the whole time I'm thinking, I hope Sean's not watching this part.
I was hoping he was.
Now, when you talk, Mark, we talk about YouTube rabbit holes. It was about a couple months ago. They feeded me these videos on magnet fishing. Do you know what magnet fishing is?
No, but I really want to. So
what it is you get a very high-powered magnet. You attach it on a chain, and you throw it over a bridge. And you draw it through the water, and you pull up all the metal that is on the bottom of a riverbed.
Okay.
And now a lot of it is crap, but there's always videos where people are pulling out guns.
Wow.
Jesus. And sometimes they're fishing, they pull out a couple of guns, and at the end, it's always the police coming up, and they're showing, these are the guns we pulled out of the river. Do you want to take possession of them? And sometimes they do because, why else would you throw a gun over the river if you hadn't used it in a crime,
Christina says here she actually bought one of the magnets.
Oh. I have to wonder how real those, if they're staged a lot, but
it's I don't know, but quite a few I really got into, and this might gross some people out. The whole pimple popping thing on YouTube, like,
oh my god, you watch those?
There's something so satisfying about it. I have to say, really.
You're like my son. He loves those. He watches those.
I do, and I get so frustrated when they tease you and that you don't get the ending. It's like, what are you doing to me?
That's the worst.
Those
But the other one,
I scroll through them very quickly when I see something like that pop up. I don't want to watch that stuff.
But I've been watching ones recently, which has been, you know how people like make models, like model soldiers and stuff. Well, I've been watching Wargaming, which isn't my cup of tea at all. But these guys, they've been making custom figures of Lego soldiers, and they've been reenacting great battles. Yeah, and sometimes as it is from films. So, for example, they did Zulu. But it's just, I don't know, the way they do it, it's so kind of cute because they're little Lego figures, right? And I don't know, it's weird, but it's really watchable, you know, watching them doing these things. Yeah, it's like, oh,
I'd watch that.
yeah.
Have you
And they
guys
use little clips from the films as well. So, like, there's a little Lego sergeant going around. It's like, all right, then, nobody told you to stop working, you know, like from the films, you know, or whatever. So, brilliant.
I did an animated movie in high school with friends of mine, and we had dinosaur models, and I had a Captain Kirk figure and a Dr. McCoy figure, and we did stop motion animation, and the one guy would have a knife in his hand, and he'd put it into the chest, and we had blood spurting out and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I did the claymation animation too in high school.
Yeah,
I remember. It was my favorite one was one we called Lunchtime, and it was just a little clay man on a desert island, and a sea monster comes out and eats him. You know, just kind of grabs him. And the last scene was the sea monster running away from even a bigger monster trying to eat the sea monster.
Yeah.
I'll send you the last claymation stop motion video I made later on Voxer at school. Me and a colleague of mine were quite bored once in the staff room, but I won't talk about it here.
I have a copy. I have a copy of mine somewhere. I know I have it somewhere because I reconnected to my friend from years ago and he had a copy and he sent it to me. So if I can find it, I'll send it to you guys.
Brilliant.
I'm fairly confident my claymation is in the dustbins of some landfill. Well, not dustbin.
Boy.
You've never been into movie making, Randy? Or shouldn't we ask?
Not those kind of movies.
Yanni says, this is a brilliant live stream. We could make some YouTube shorts out of it. It'd be funny. Awesome Scooby-Doo impression. Thank you, Gareth. Scott, the last rabbit hole I went down on YouTube, and I'm still going down, is the Scientology rabbit hole. L. Ron Hubbard was a nut bar. Well, of course, that's your opinion, Scott. I can't possibly say that I agree or not on this channel.
Didn't he make a lot of money from Scientology? So who's calling who a nut bar if you're making lots of money?
But actually, that's another rabbit hole I went down. There's a guy who walks like past their headquarters and stuff in, I think it's Los Angeles or somewhere in California. It's like on a main street, like on a drag. So they have a big office there, and he like harangues them and he tries to stop people going in there. Yeah. But it becomes again so watchable. You get drawn in because he's like, it's a cult. It's a cult. Don't go in there.
It kind of is. Like just down the road, there was an old church that closed down and shut themselves down, and now there's a Scientology office in this church.
In the old church
here in Canada, just like 2 minutes down the road, and they've opened up a Scientology branch. I'm
in the wrong line of business. I should have started a religion.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that's what you were planning on doing after reading all these texts. You just going to grab the best bits from all of them, and
maybe I will.
What would you call it, Greg?
Oh, I don't know. Read what you want. I don't know.
Where are we? Tim, a couple of reality shows that I like to watch are on Fox. One is Lego Masters, and the other is the Hot Wheels show.
Oh, Hot Wheels! Oh, that's another thing. My brother and I collected Hot Wheels like insanely when we were kids. We had the Hot Wheels tracks all in our basement, and we built whole cities down there, and we bought all these Hot Wheels cars, and it had to be Hot Wheels cars. No other cars would do at all. There was Mattel which were okay, but they had to be Hot Wheels cars. And we
You
have
got
a
to talk
lot
to
of
Jim. Jim's still here. He collects Hot Wheels, and there was another popular one. It's like Hot Wheels and something else, and then there was a British one. He can, if he's still here, he can mention them.
Corgi, probably.
Corgi, yeah.
Corgi, yeah.
Corgi, that's it.
I think he's still here. Christina likes the pimple popping ones as well. That's good. And she also likes Lego YouTubers, but never heard of those ones. Yeah, I maybe I'll put a community post with the link to some of the ones that I've been watching recently, like weird channels. Yeah, Jim, I'm with you there. The mudlarking one. I forget her name, but she's great. I got her book as well. Do you know what this mudlarking is, guys? Or
no?
I do.
So like, she goes along the mud flats or whatever by the River Thames and just picks stuff up. Yeah, it's amazing. The stuff
that was a way to make a living back in Victorian times. They had to wait for the water to recede and then go mudlarking, looking for stuff they could sell. And that was their livelihood.
Summer's here. Hey, Summer, what have I walked into? Yeah, well,
Well, you should know right now.
There's an AI app that makes shorts from your videos, so that's pretty good. Greg, believe in what you want.
Oh, I like that. Maybe I have my first profit of my religion.
Yeah. Matchbox is my brand, according to Jim, and the British ones were Dinky, Corgi, and Matchbox.
Matchbox was the other one I was thinking of. I said Mattel, but I think Hot Wheels is Mattel. It was Matchbox. The one I was thinking of. Matchbox is good, but they weren't quite as good as the original Hot Wheels. And we had a little thing where you had to get the car and kind of drop it onto and if it bounced, that was a good one, because there's springs in the Hot Wheels cars. We had a whole thing with those cars, but Matchbox was the other one, but they're pretty good too. And Corgi, the British ones, yeah.
Yeah, I know of Dinky. It was pretty old. I mean, they would have been the type my dad probably would have played with, in the olden
Dinky
days.
Cars, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry?
Dinky cars.
Yeah. Well, it really is like a nostalgic meeting in the pub, isn't it, really?
Yes,
Had a bit of philosophy, a bit of books, bit of toys and that kind of stuff, but perhaps it's time to call
hour and 52 minutes.
Day.
Yeah.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Well, that's it. We can head off to the after party in the offline.
Well, I know my wife's invited guests for the evening, so I got to make sure the house upstairs is looking like a perfect B&B.
Well, it's the downside of being retired, right? Because she knows you got the time to do it.
Yeah.
Just before we go, though, we do have a couple of things here. The mudlarking, Nicola White, thank you. Jim has 1,500 die-cast cars.
Wow.
I now have a lot of the old Soviet-made models living in the ex-USSR. That would be really interesting. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Actually, we have a what do you call it in the States? A mom and pop store or a ma and pa store, I don't know, just up the road, which does like car parts and stuff and car stuff. You can tell I don't drive. Stuff for cars, you can buy your antifreeze there, whatever. But I think their biggest business is selling model cars. Yeah, they have in the window also like all these model cars, and people go in and buy them and stuff. So this was great, guys. Thank you. Well, thank you for watching. And Summer says,
hanging out for the whole time.
Yeah, thank you.
Summer says, I look forward to watching this from the beginning. Well, I don't know, Summer, if you haven't, if there is anything better to do than watch us, go back and watch another 2 hours.
Just come in another week and we'll be talking about something else.
Probably. But no, go and watch it from the beginning. Why not? So there we have it. So everybody, thank you ever so much for thank you chats for joining me, and thank you everybody in the chat for coming in and joining us, and we'll see you soon, maybe even next week, who knows.
Maybe.
Take care, everybody.
All right, everyone. Good
Bye.
night, good afternoon.
Bye-bye.